So today's message, we're a couple of weeks away from a brand new series, and I'm just back, Kathy and I, from vacation. We went to South Carolina to visit some friends, and then we're in Kentucky for a couple of days on our way home to be with one of my baby sister and her husband and one of their kids that was home, and we had a great time. And then we come back to some major cold weather, and it's good to be home. And I got good news. It's going to be 20 on Wednesday. I mean, us tough Midwesterners, we'll be in T-shirts by then, right? 20 degrees. Feel like a heat wave around here. And I thought on this Valentine's Day that it would maybe be a good time to have a little communication message. Maybe have a little fun, lighten up a little. You don't see me lighten up that. Well, I have fun, but we've had some serious messages because the times call for it. And I'd like to share a few Christian dating pickup lines I used on Kathy when we met 38 years ago. And I'll forewarn you, these pickup lines are a little cheesy, but, you know, here you go. Give me a courtesy laugh if you would. But I got done with this message in the first service, and somebody came up to me and said, with those pickup lines, I'm surprised you got her, you know. But and by the way, Kathy and I have been going through stuff in our storage, creating room because we're building a gym in our basement and trying to stay young and strong, you know. And so we've been going through a lot of boxes and stuff, trying to get rid of things and keep things that we want to keep, label everything. And I found my dad's wedding ring, and I'm wearing my dad's wedding ring today. It's pretty cool. And I had lots of memories of many years of living in the Living Light Singers, and I went through our wedding album yesterday. I hadn't gone through that in a long time. And honey, you're more beautiful today than the day I married you. And I know you feel the same about me. And what? And so I told her when I met her, I said, because I wanted to be a Christian, but I wanted to pick that girl up, you know. And I said, I think one of my ribs belongs to you. Second date, I said, I'd like to greet you with a holy kiss. You know? I told her, if you're looking for a knight in shining armor, I just happen to be wearing the armor of God. Yeah. I said, is your name Grace? Because you're sure amazing. All right, one more, if you insist. I said, did God rub mud in my eyes? Because I was blind to beauty before I saw you. Pretty thick around here, isn't it, huh? You know, a marriage can sink or swim depending on how well communication is sent and received. Years ago, Kathy and I were on a vacation in the South, visiting for a couple of days before we went on and to our vacation, and visited with some friends that we had known from years back and had dinner with them at a restaurant. And we were only about 10 minutes into that dinner when we knew we were in trouble. These two people couldn't hardly tolerate looking at one another. Their marriage had so much breakdown that they couldn't even be nice in front of us. And everything each one of them said or did aggravated the other one. They lived together, but their marriage was really in trouble. And the Apostle Paul gave us some clear instructions to God's people. And I want you to know that this message will be good for all of life, because life is about communication, not only with our spouse, but with our kids, with our co-workers, with our friends, with everybody we meet. You know, we have got a lot of young people planning to get married someday. And this message will be a good tune-up. And if you're here and you don't know that significant other, but you're wanting to know that person someday, take to heart this message. I mean, you can have fun with me, and I love to have fun, but there are some things here that will help. And some of you folks that have been married for a long time, and you probably need a little tune-up too once in a while. How many people have been married 20, 30, 40 years still need tune-ups once in a while? Amen. I see some ribs being poked right now. So, Ephesians 4:29 says, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. Communication is the lifeblood of marriage. One of the most important skills we'll ever attain is knowing how to talk so our mate will listen, and how to listen so our mate will talk. Families have different ways of communicating. I remember when I met with Kathy, I realized as we got married that our families had different ways of doing things. How many know when you marry somebody, you're not just marrying them, but you're marrying everything that comes with them, including family experiences, life experiences, the way things were done, the way they learned as a child from mom and dad, grandpas and grandmas. And when you bring a couple together, you're bringing a lot together there. And it's a lot to work through sometimes. Kathy and I, our families are different, not necessarily right or wrong. We both have struggles, and our families have had struggles. But it wasn't really about right or wrong. It was just different. The Bowmans, we fussed at one another a lot. Now, we're really close. I mean, my sisters and I traveled for 15 years as adults, living together 24/7 in buses and vans and trailers and hotels for 15 years, doing 200 concerts a year. We had an unusual closeness, and we fussed at each other. And I remember many times you say knock down, drag out. We never hit one another, but we had some real fusses. And Tammy and I were both very strong-headed, and we didn't like to let each other win. And, sometimes we'd have to figure it out and then pray and hug each other and then walk on that platform and minister to sometimes thousands of people. And I remember marrying Kathy, and, the Bowman's way, we'd have a family, a dispute or an argument or whatever, and we'd all come together. And, man, you could hardly get a word in edgewise with the Bowmans. We were all passionate, very vocal. We talked loud and strong. But the good thing about our family is, and I always say, some people have this idea that to have a good marriage means you never fight. I say baloney on that. I say some of the best marriages I've ever seen fuss at one another, have a lot of disagreement, but they know how. They've learned boundaries. There's certain things you just don't ever say. And, one thing about our family, I'm so thankful that when on occasion we'd have a tough time, we were all wanting to make it work and get it right. And before that session was over, we were usually crying and hugging, and somebody was apologizing and moving on. And, when I married Kathy, Kathy's family was all these real polite people. And didn't talk a whole lot, and weren't Southern, people when cutting with their words and sharp. And, I'm like, wow, that's weird. And they were more reserved, and sometimes they would say, let's work that out a few days later. And I'm like, no, I want to work it out right now. And she's like, I want to think about this for a while and pray about it, and then we'll talk about it at the right time. And I'm like, phooey on that. And it was different. It was different. And times when we were upset, I could get 10 words out before she could get one, because my tongue is connected to my brain a lot closer than hers. She had all the same emotions, thoughts, and feelings, but my personality wouldn't let her get it out. And so, one day my dad came to me. In our first year of marriage, we loved one another. We're very committed to one another, Kathy and I, but we were struggling. And you know what we struggled with? The little things. Seems like the big stuff that would come along, we'd pull together and be strong and we'd make it. But the little stuff about take us out. Little things. And I remember my dad came to me, who was my pastor at the time, and he said, son, when are you and Kathy going to get some help? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, son, everybody can tell you guys are having problems. I said, what, really? He said, yeah, the whole world knows. I'm like, wow. So we got a little bit of help. And you know what we found out? We thought that we're the only couple that has ever had the problems that we're having. And you know what we found out? Every couple has these same problems. And we all got work to do. And so I'm so grateful that Dad came to me one day and just, poked and encouraged us to get some help. And we needed it. Most marriages need a third party, close friend, pastor, somebody to help them. And I'm sad to tell you that most of my pastoral life, not all, thank God, not all, but much of my pastoral life is people will finally call me when it's, and don't get me wrong, it's never too late in God, but people many times would only call me when it's like it's almost too late. Thank God for couples that have the wisdom to get a tune-up once in a while, to get some help, be committed to one another, and not wait till it's awful. And I'm very thankful for marriages. Our marriage mentoring, we've got marriage mentors here at Calvary that are willing in their busyness, because ministry and people matter to them. They're willing to take on couples and come alongside them and help them and mentor them and encourage them. And I'm very grateful. Families have different ways of communicating. It's difficult to say the right thing at the right time, but it's also difficult to leave something unsaid when it's tempting to say it. I want to give you in your outline to start this message 5 behaviors of non-effective communication. Now, if you'll keep a smile on your face, I won't know you're guilty, but I'm probably going to hit everybody a couple of times, square in the head, so just keep smiling. I won't know you're guilty. But here, and folks, believe me, it's hard to preach a message like this with my wife sitting right there. Would you like to preach this message? Because we've all made mistakes, right? We've all messed up, and I'm certainly one. But here are 5 behaviors of very non-effective communication. First is silencers. This is a form of nonverbal and non-effective communication. It sends a surplus of negative messages, and its destructive force is used to try and control, but it never works. The second one is appeasers. This is a behavior used to make their spouse less angry and less upset by doing or saying things to please them and deciding it's not worth the effort to work through it. Appeasers say things like this: well, whatever you want, sure, it's okay, go ahead, I'm all right with it, whatever, never mind, go ahead. Appeasers want to keep the peace. They usually have difficulty expressing themselves, and they really need to know that it's okay to disagree. Third one is accusers. This is a behavior used to find fault and criticize relentlessly. They usually speak in generalizations like, you never do anything right, or you always do that. You're just like your mother. It's getting quiet in here. Watch out. Accusers feel the best defense is a good offense. They come up with words that are hard to argue with, leaving the other person feeling disheartened and exposed. Accusers like to pin people down as if that's going to really help the situation. Pin them down. Colossians 4 and verse 6 says, let your conversation be gracious and attractive so that you will have the right response for everyone. I'm going to tell you, effective communication takes a heart postured towards God. It takes backing up and breathing when you need to. And it takes the understanding that you need to stop and think for just a minute, what do I hope to achieve out of this interaction? Am I just out to get my way, make my point, say something to get at them, get back? Those are the wrong motivations to ever communicate. 4 is processors. This behavior comes off as reasonable, calm, and collected, never admitting mistakes, and expects people to conform and perform. The processor says things like, upset? I'm not upset. Why do you say I'm upset? Processors, they think like a computer and can't figure out why people cannot just state the facts. Would you take the emotion out of it? Processors are afraid of emotion. They prefer statistics instead of anybody's emotion. And then fifth, there's diverters. You ever known a diverter? This behavior avoids direct contact and direct answers. They're quick to change the subject or say, what problem? We don't have any problems. Let's go shopping. Confronting anything would mean that the problem might lead to a bigger problem or a fight, and that could be dangerous, so avoid that at all costs. Let's just play the game. Let's just have all these hurts and feelings underneath, but let's hide it and put on the smile and act like everything is okay. Diverters need to know that they're safe and the problems and conflicts can be resolved. That part of relationship is working through things. And listen, I don't want to discourage anybody. You're going to be working through things the rest of your life. Wasn't that exciting? The next time you feel yourself being silent, appeasing, accusing, overly processing, or diverting, remember, you're most likely dealing with a range of things causing you to not fully engage in meaningful communication. And if your spouse is doing the same, you can help. Say, what do I do? I'm willing, Pastor, but my wife or my husband's not willing. Well, first of all, know this: you can't change them. You can really not even take care of yourself. You're both going to have to go to God. And I want to tell you this. Kathy and I have been married long enough to know we cannot change one another. You know, a lot of married couples don't know that. You can't change it. It takes God. And you know, God can't even do it unless we become willing participants. And so if your spouse is doing some of the same things, you can help by being loving. Genuinely. Just being loving and kind. Be honest. You know, some married folks, I have watched folks in my life, there's barely any honesty in their communication. Not really honest. It's quarter of an inch deep. It's never honest. Resisting pride. If we want to get a communication going, we have to resist pride. We have to be willing to be wrong, not falsely being wrong if we don't feel like we are. We have to be honest, but we have to be willing to be wrong. Not being defensive, so the root of the issue can surface to begin this path forward. Now here's the key. Find a way to make a safe environment so you can both talk. Create an environment that is safe so you can both talk. I didn't give this in the first lesson, so it's kind of coming out. This is a whole series I'm condensing to one message. There's so much to say on this. But you know, one of the things I've learned is Kathy and I weren't dating for a while. When the kids came and life got busy, the church was growing, we're building buildings, and all of a sudden we're not spending much time together. And one day somebody said, Pastor, how often are you and Kathy going on a date? And I couldn't remember the last time we went on a date. And so somebody gave us this tip, and I've passed it on hundreds of times, is create a safe place to go on a date and have a date when you're not dealing with problems. I mean, you need to deal with problems. You need to deal with challenges, but create an opportunity at least once a week, once every 10 days or whatever to go. I mean, if you don't have any money, go get a taco or something. Get something reasonable. And because spending a lot of money is not the point. I know a lot of people who spend a lot of money on a date and never resolve anything. Kathy would rather spend a few bucks and have something meaningful in communication than me spend a bunch of money on her and we not talk about things that we need to talk about. But we've decided when we go on a date, we don't deal with problems on a date. This is a safe time for us to have fun, laugh, enjoy one another, and experience the love that drew us together in the early years, and to take that time and not deal with problems, not deal with Reese and Riley, because they're a handful. Not so much now, thank God. But, just have this safe moment. And, quite honestly, Kathy, you remember the first time we did this and had these boundaries where we weren't going to deal with problems and we were going to have a good time and we weren't going to fuss? We didn't have much to talk about. We kind of had to learn each other all over again. And then all of a sudden, man, we couldn't wait. It was fun, good time together. Out of that came better opportunities for us to deal with some of the struggles. Man, when the kids came along, we didn't know how many struggles we were going to have. She wanted to do it this way. I wanted to do it this way. She wanted to discipline this way. I wanted to discipline that way. Oh, my goodness. We had to communicate. We had to make sure we're on the same team. And so, couples with good marriages do struggle and they fuss at one another, but they also have more understanding for each other and they feel better understood. They're able to navigate through tough subjects. They withhold very little from each other and have equipped themselves to resolve conflict. 1 John 3:18 says, "Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions." Good communication is built first on who we are. What we do comes next. And this leads me to, I want to give you in your outline, 3 behaviors of effective communication. Effective communication. Number 1 is acceptance. I want to talk about that for just a moment because this behavior understands and fully embraces the fact that your spouse came to you with many unacceptable qualities. Some were known and some are still emerging. Full acceptance means that you decide to embrace your spouse's blemishes, quirks, morning breath, and all. And then with the Lord's leading and His timing, you gradually move ahead at a pace you both can tolerate. Couples can work towards a relationship that allows them both to grow at a pace of growth and challenge and change that is doable because of your love and acceptance of each other. Let me tell you one more thing. Kathy and I realized as we got into this and started studying communication and being effective and working out things, we began to understand that there were times when she would see things that she needed to change, and she would generally see, and I would see things that I needed to change in me. But you know what? Just because you can see it doesn't mean change is that easy. Has anybody ever experienced that? You know you need to change, but changing is harder than it seems. You get lifelong patterns that are 10 years old, 15, 20, 25 or more years that you've been doing. You have default systems. And you're like, whoa, I'm not supposed to be acting that way anymore. And here you did it again. This is why we have to really accept one another. How many know Jesus accepted us while we were yet sinners, messed up, going the wrong way? And I would say this, don't confuse acceptance with approval. That's one of the big things that's happening in our culture today in America. There is a huge confusion between acceptance and approval. We can accept and love and care for one another. That doesn't mean we approve of everyone's lifestyle and everyone's decision making. We have to work on those things. I say that because there's so many people today that concerning their friends or their marriages, it's like they think this, they wouldn't say it. And I come along, and I've been saying this the last couple of years because I feel like it needs to be said over and over. But people have this mindset that if you don't approve of what I'm doing or my decisions, you're against me. Folks, we have to be bigger boys and girls than that. Let me just say it once more. Some of the greatest things that's ever happened in my life was when somebody disapproved of me. They accepted me and they loved me, but they disapproved of a leadership decision, of something I've done in my life, some way that I
made a decision or whatever it was, and they loved me enough to challenge. It doesn't mean they're always right. It just means they love me enough to. We have got to separate acceptance and approval. Now, I'm not saying people don't need approval. They do, and we need acceptance. But how many know if you're a good friend, sometimes a good friend will disapprove in the right way? And it creates a growing opportunity possibly, right? Or at least when somebody disapproves of me, I at least get an opportunity in a relationship to express where I'm coming from. And they maybe have a chance to grow. Because communication, effective communication, allows the conversation to be had. When Kathy wanted to get married, she, back in those days, she was a bargain hunter. Oh man, that girl, she loved to find bargains. And when she found me, I was 50% off, and so she married me. Romans 15 is about living to please others. Paul said in Romans 15:7, "Therefore accept each other just as Christ has accepted you, so that God will be given glory." Acceptance is about inviting God's grace to the marriage. I didn't say we should always approve. All right, so acceptance. 3 behaviors of effective communication. The second one is realness. This behavior of effective communication is being real and not phony or insincere. It's way more than words. Love has this action plan. I want to say this before I go to the third one. It's been said that I don't know how they come up with these percentages, but I think the point is pretty amazing. The 58% of our communication with others happens non-verbally. 58% of our communication with other people is non-verbal. Tone of voice makes up 35% of the message. Your tone. And the words we actually say, this stat says the words we actually say to somebody only account for 7% of the total message that we send. Wow. Realness is expressed in our eyes, our tone, our posture. And we know exactly how to interpret our spouse's nonverbal communication. I mean, Kathy can walk into the room and I can look at her face and her countenance and her posture, and man, before she said a word, I've kind of read that chapter. Fair enough? When you know your wife, and we've been together a long time, when I walk in from the office and a long day's work, and I love what I do, she can tell in a second what kind of day I've had. The greatest techniques in the world won't work if we're not being real with one another. Third, effective communication is understanding. This behavior knows that life looks different from your spouse than it does for you. You know, I say that because, you know, I didn't know this, but I spent a lot of years thinking everybody saw life like I saw it. I thought everybody saw things the way I saw them. I was so naive, and I still fight naivety. I don't know if that's a word. But, you know, to realize people see things differently. Sometimes it's not always about right or wrong. We just see things differently. I am so glad I did not marry a Tim Bowman. Oh, I'd hate to have to live with me. I'm glad I married Kathy. She completes me. I help her. When we're on the same team and we're recognizing each other's strengths and what we bring to the table, we become an awesome, mighty force together. When we're not recognizing that, it's not near as much fun. What would happen if we decided to gain understanding from our spouse's point of view? I remember Kathy nudging me one time, and she said, "You weren't even listening to me." And when she puts her hands like right here, "You weren't even listening to me, were you?" And I'm thinking, that's a strange way to start a conversation. You know? All right, moving along. Most of us are wired to either use our head more or our heart more. And it usually takes a conscious effort to fully engage our head and our heart into our marriage, our work, our parenting, and all of our relationships. I'm learning that if I choose to have understanding for Kathy and her hurts and her hopes, it changes me. Being able to see the world through your spouse's perspective will be a tremendous advantage to your life, your relationship. Now, we've talked about acceptance, realness, and understanding, and I want to close this message by giving you 5 respectable ground rules for better communication. I want to lay out some ground rules for you, because some of you don't have ground rules. You don't have boundaries. I mean, you think about it. Even in a boxing match, they have a ring. And when the bell goes, they stop. They go to their corners. Man, some Christian marriages, they don't have a ring, a bell, anything goes, they'll fight anywhere. Come on, laugh a little. Let me know you're okay. All right, here's my first boundary. These are suggestions, all right? I'm not saying thus saith the Lord. These are things that your pastors learned along the way and still learning. Number 1, don't say you. When you're upset, the natural tendency is to attack with saying things like, you drive me crazy, you did this, you did, why did you do that? None of you have ever done that, I know. The natural tendency when being attacked is to be defensive. It's a protection mode. If you attack your mate, seldom will you get this response. If you attack your mate, seldom will you ever get this response. You're right, honey. I was totally wrong. I'm so sorry. Typically, the you statements are returned like, you're the one that's insensitive. Did you ever consider the pressure I'm on right now? What do you expect from me? Once this begins, a nice evening is probably unlikely. Instead, consider saying something like, say something like this instead of the you statements. Say, in the right tone, for the right reason. Say, I feel hurt and neglected when my opinion's not wanted. I statements give out information to be understood rather than you statements that accuse and cause a defense. When we use I statements, effective communication is more likely to happen if our posture of our heart is right. I statements do not usually cause defensiveness because they hopefully say nothing about your spouse's involvement. Honey, I'm feeling this way. This is what's going on in me. You're not accusing. Attacking your spouse has no real benefit. But when we say, I was hoping that the plans we had for this evening were not forgotten, we're most likely going to have more sincere communication. The second one, do you like these? Really, 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 really listen. Good communication learns this behavior well. Hearing is passive, but listening requires being interactive and repeating it back to the sender. I've learned this in life, and I try to remember it all the time, not just in our marriage, but in life or with the boys. Reese and Riley, when I'm talking, boys, Reese, how many times have I said, while you were growing up, now, son, what did Dad just say? Because here's what I've learned. I've pastored people. We have a meeting, we have a board meeting, and sometimes I would ask somebody in the board, now, what did you just hear me say? What do you think what did we decide here? BJ, we talk like that, don't we? We have interaction, we come back. Because here's what we've learned. I can say something and ask, what did you hear? And they can say back what they heard. And I'm like, that's not what I said at all. I didn't say that at all. And sometimes they can repeat the exact same words, put the commas in a different place, the emphasis in a different place.
the tone in a different way, and all of a sudden what they heard and what I said wasn't at all the same thing. Marriages do this all the time. That's why communication is not easy. It takes work, right? So you got to really, really listen. If Kathy told me when I came to the house after work, "You're late for supper," again, I may be tempted to retaliate by saying, "If you had the day I had with these crazy Calvary Church people that I'm dealing with out here," just kidding, "you would understand." But if I truly listened to Kathy beyond her words, I would understand that maybe she worked very hard to cook a scrumptious meal for us to enjoy, and it hurt her when I didn't show up on time, and now she's trying to keep this meal good on a stove, keep it hot and not ruining it. James says to be quick to listen and slow to speak. Instead of hearing words when our spouses talk, we can learn to listen to what they're really saying. And this means that our hearts will need to be engaged as much as our head. And listening involves serious consideration for change. Third is accept the differences. Now, I could get in trouble here, but I hope you all love me enough that even if you disagree, you'll still love me. I was going to pull this out because we live in this political minefield today in our world, but I'm just going to say it. I think I can say it. Women, by and large, use communication to form connections with other people. Men tend to use words to communicate their knowledge and skill and impart information. Most women share feelings, and men, most of the time, not always, most women share feelings, and men tend to want to solve problems. Married folks need to understand this fundamental difference in the way God made men and women. Husbands, recognize when your wife just wants to be understood, to be heard. And there are times when she does not want you to fix her. She just wants to have a safe place to share what she's feeling. Amen. Okay. Wives, identify when your husband wants to impart information and desires perspective more than he wants emotion from you. So we have to understand each other. Number 4, say "I'm sorry" when necessary, and it usually is necessary. There are times when a simple, honest apology will cause things to be dismissed so you can move on. Now, I'm not talking about a premature apology. Some people apologize to just get on with it, get it over with. That's not honest. That's not humble. That's not truthful. And it blocks any real change that is needed. We need marriages that can apologize and still embrace responsibility and accountability for our own behavior. A sincere apology can leave a couple renewed and relieved. And we all need to know pretty often that everything is okay, all is well. Listen, no matter how confident you are, we all need that once in a while. All is well. It's okay. Everything's going to be all right. And the last one is keep touching. Human skin has millions of nerve endings called touch receptors, and when we're touched, these receptors send messages to the brain. Now, when Kathy has a long or difficult day, and if I will remember to take a moment and give her a big hug, I learned this in reading a book one day. Here's what happens when I give her an honest and giving hug when she's had a tough day. That hug causes a rise in hemoglobin, a substance of red blood cells that transport energizing oxygen throughout her body, causes a speeding heart to quiet, soaring blood pressure to drop, and even causes pain to ease. Did you know a hug can do that? Most young couples hug and kiss and hold hands whenever they're together, and some marriages remain huggers and hand holders, others don't. Usually in a marriage, one has a family that is more high touch than the other family. Married folks should talk about their comfort zones of touching one another, hugging, because if done appropriately, this can be a wonderful way to communicate with your partner. Men, God created women. Okay, I'm going to say it. Pastor Jeff, come on up, and he's got a song that he's going to sing to end this service that the Lord gave me. I want you to set it up a little bit, if you would, Pastor Jeff. But I want to say this to get myself in a little trouble just before we close it. Men, I've been picking on the men more than the women. Men, God created women with more emotion and feeling than you have, by and large. We have 5 senses. She has 6, 7, maybe 8. And when you're trying to, I'm going to give you a little fair warning. When you, man, husband, when you're trying to confuse her with facts, she's capable of blowing you away with emotion. And when the facts are long forgotten, the feelings will be right there. The average man has to say to himself, I must listen and listen well, and don't you get caught drifting. Right? Husbands and wives, hey, I would encourage you to take this message, take the notes, take some time and go over this week. I double dog dare you. Take this and go over with it. I might encourage you to take the notes and talk about it. Your differences can make your lives and marriages better if you'll be sure to communicate that you're on the same team. And we have a Talk About It curriculum that we prepare for every Sunday morning message. That Talk About It curriculum is for couples, for life groups, for accountability partners. We have several groups in our church that take that, and it's right in your notes on the app. You can print that out. There's usually 3 questions that kind of get some good communication going. And usually there's one homework assignment, which is really nothing more than an assignment of, okay, how to put this message into action this week, how to do something about it. And I hope you'll take advantage of that. We work hard at providing these little tools to be a blessing and to help you. I love you all. Pastor Jeff, talk about this song and sing it for us.
How many of you guys have ever made any of those mistakes? How many of you, it cost you some relationships? Yep, I've lost a few in my life. And my story's not the one you write books about, but it is one you write songs about. And this is a song I wrote to my sons about love. Love's a book. Some chapters happy, some are sad, some make you cry, while others make you laugh. But turn the page to a brand new chapter, brand new day. Live, love, and learn from your mistakes. Leave behind the lessons that you've learned, and never forget the last page that you turned. Those who feel entitled to that which must be earned are always bound to burn and get burned. Love is the power that makes your heart beat. It can carry you to the highest heights. It can bring you to your knees. Many chapters have been written, many still lie ahead. So never forget what you've read. Son, never forget what you've read. We all like the part when the hero finally wins, he gets the girl and is cheered on by his friend. But that's when, oh, the real battle begins. You see the dragons on the problem. It's the demons from within. The heart isn't won with spears and swords, but with open ears, with kind and gentle words. In trying to win the battle, you always lose the war, 'cause winning comes with keeping score. Because winning comes with keeping score. Love is the power that makes your heart beat. It can carry you to the highest heights. It can bring you to your knees. Many chapters have been written, many still lie here. So never forget what you've read. So never forget what you've read. So never forget what you've read.
Oh, that was good. Stand to your feet, everybody. Lord, I thank you for marriage, relationships, kids, co-workers, family, churches. I pray that this message today will touch us on many levels, encourage us and challenge us to go forward. None of us have arrived. We're all on a journey, and us men need to know we're not going to arrive on this earth. We're going to probably struggle in some good ways the rest of our lives. Let us be up for the task because of all the empowerment, love, and your word that you provide us, Lord. Let us be sensitive, wise, caring. In Jesus' name, amen. Love you all. I hope to see you at family night. Sign up for Blueprints if that is something that God's put on your heart. God bless you.